So what was I looking for when I was looking for the van and what I ended up purchasing? When I was first looking for a van, I got extremely frustrated that there was nothing in my affordability. And the more I searched, the more I wanted, the more I upgraded, upsized in my head about all the things that I wanted. I was listening to everybody's advice and writing down, oh yes, I need to have that, and I need to have this, and I need to have that, and it needs to have this, and geez, that would be great, and blah, blah, blah. And before I knew it, I was looking at $250,000 rigs. My house that I purchased years ago was, $50,000, although I sold it for a lot more than that, but trying to justify a $250,000 purchase for a van, something that could, easily, anyway. So I had to come back to reality. And in Australia, the price of vans is much higher than what I've noticed in the USA anyway. Here you can get an ex-backpacker bomb of a van for around $2,500 and not expect it to last or have, or you're going to have a lot of trouble. And on average, a very old van will need work. Those vans cost around $5,000, and you can get a cheap van between $5,000 and $7,000, but most of the good second-hand vehicles are over $10,000 and more leaning towards the $12,000 to $15,000. And this is just the average, a van with the basics, as far as the camper van with the very basics. So the ones I started looking at and drooling over were around $250,000, and they were huge. They had everything: a bathroom, a shower, a toilet, the full kitchen. They looked amazing, better than any house that I've lived in. And after I came back to reality, I had to think about, well, what is it, the minimum that I actually need to have? And I drive an automatic. So what I was looking for was an automatic that had done less than 200,000 kilometres ideally, was high enough to stand up in. I'm 5'4", roughly, maybe less, I think 5'4" or 5'3", something like that. I wanted it to be long enough to sleep in, and I didn't want to buy a dud, something that I had to fix up, because I don't have mechanical skills, and I'm not sure, I don't have anyone that I can rely on to make it better if there is something wrong with it. And I really just wanted something that could get me to my destination, because at the time when I first thought about buying the van, apart from thinking about solutions for the homeless, I was also thinking, how do I get from Melbourne to Queensland, where I am to where I want to go? And I was like, well, if I got a van, I could just put all my stuff in there and go to Queensland, and then I wouldn't need to buy, get storage. I could just stay with a friend for a while, look for accommodation. I took a lot of the problems out, where if I did what I was first thinking about, I would have to get a hire van, move my stuff into it, and actually have somewhere already in Queensland where I would have to unpack all my stuff, even though I don't have a job there. And it just put a lot of what ifs. So buying my van, replacing my car with a van that I could use for work as well as put all my stuff in, that was the ideal solution. And then all the other stuff, rolled out from there. I was like, well, maybe I can actually live in it too, or at least downsize my life to the size of a van and things like that. I also wanted something on gas or diesel rather than petrol to try and save on money, but that didn't end up happening either. So I wanted a van that I could stand up in, which is, 5'4". I drew some chalk on the ground in the backyard to get an idea on sizing of the van, and I started putting things in that sort of area, like where would a bed go and things like that, just, laying it out. And I decided I wanted the length to be at least 2.4 metres. So it had to be less than $10,000, because that's the maximum loan that I was willing to get, being that my income is quite low right now. So I had to think about, well, if I didn't have a job, or if I had even less hours than I have now, and the repayments and all that kind of stuff, what is the most I'm willing to risk to make sure that I don't lose everything, And I created a spreadsheet for research. I wrote the brand, model, year, price, mileage, location, fuel, when the registration would run out, whether the price included a roadworthy, important notes about it, anything that it might have, like that one has a bed, that one has a shower, that one has a toilet, that one has power, that one has LED lighting, that one has nothing, and that one says the air conditioning doesn't work, that kind of thing, just important notes that I wanted to keep on a spreadsheet, and then the link to the actual, where I found it. And I'll upload the spreadsheet somewhere for you to download if anyone's interested in using that as a baseline for their own research. But what I ended up doing was going against all my research when I fell in love with HomeR, which is my van. So with the spreadsheet, though, it was good because I was able to compare what people were selling by comparing these same models and year and everything, and seeing the difference in pricing, which I thought would help me negotiate a little bit better when the time came to actually, purchasing. And also, just gauging how much everything was worth. And I think that's why I ended up ultimately, choosing something less than what I thought I wanted. But so I spent at least 8 weeks doing research, at least 8 weeks. And then when I got my shortlist down, I started to try and meet and test out the vans to see if they were, what I wanted. That had its own dramas as well. I don't know if it's just females that have this problem, but I had one guy who kept making the price of his awesome camper van. I mean, it was just an awesome, huge, had everything, bathroom, everything anyway. It was way out of my budget, but he replied to one of my ads, so he kept on making the price lower. And then I found out, to be able to match what I could afford. And then I found out he was just lonely and needed company, so basically he knew I couldn't afford the van, but was willing to discount it if I, kind of gave him some personal love in a way that I would never do. And my ethics and values are a little bit higher than I guess he was hoping, so that was really strange anyway. After that, I was a lot more skeptical and a lot less trusting about visiting vans by myself, although I still did. And so I posted up the ads on Gumtree with the exact specifications of what I was looking for, and I highly recommend doing this, even though I had an unusual experience, which ended up being quite safe because I didn't go back there. But I highly recommend you put an ad on Gumtree or wherever your local, that kind of thing is in your country, if you'd rather buyers come to you rather than you do all the research yourself, because you can lose yourself in research. I spent day and night poring over boring auction ads and eBay and Gumtree and car sales sites and requesting for more information, requesting for more, keeping up to date, keeping on top of who's replied, who hasn't replied, and things like that. And so as exciting as it was knowing that I was shopping for my future van and my future home, the tedious task of sorting through all the vehicles and the information and contacting everybody and just finding out where they are and driving out there, and it's just painstaking and frustrating. And the ad brought in lots of people who were willing to negotiate and match my price budget because they actually resonated with my story. So how did I end up finding HomeR? I found him on eBay. I had looked at a similar sized vehicle in the previous month when I was still fussy about all the things I wanted the van to have, when I was still way up over my budget. And I decided it wasn't worth the drive to go and look. But when the new ad came up for, this one, I was getting kind of restless and excited. I just wanted a van. And the one that I was currently negotiating with was never available. It was a Mercedes Sprinter, and it was perfect and it was good for my budget, although it was completely empty. Like, I'd have to do everything myself to make it into a camper van, but I just loved it. And it was a good deal, but the guy was just never available, and I just wanted to move into the van, and it was, 3 weeks had passed and I still hadn't heard back from him, except to say that he was busy because he was working like 7 days a week, so he's just really hard to get a hold of. So anyway, one day I was, not off work, and I went for a drive, and once I saw it, I went inside, I must have spent 40 minutes in there just taking photos and imagining what, life would be like living inside this van. And I also took a test drive as a passenger because the area of the city was scary for me, and I wasn't used to driving such a tall vehicle, and it looked scarier than, what it was now. I just drive it like a car, but, back then it was like, double the size of my cars. And even though it's so much smaller than all the other vans I was looking at, it was still big compared to anything that I've ever had. And so, that it was much smaller than what I wanted, and the thought of downsizing my life even more than what I already anticipated was actually quite exhilarating, but also scary. So I went back home, not, 100%, sort of kind of already knowing that this was the one, but I was still full of doubts because of how small it was. But the pluses were that because it was an ex-ambulance, it already had a lot of the things that I would have had to install on the other vehicles that I was looking at. So it already had lighting installed, shelving, a bench seat, storage, heating, air conditioning, although both the heater and the air conditioner in the back are very confusing to me and I haven't been able to work out how to turn the heater off or the aircon on. It had a second battery already installed as well, and as I was, purchasing from an actual mechanic, so I was presuming, that it was going to be mechanically sound, or at the very least better than the average Joe that I might purchase from, and hopefully available to answer questions that I might have. So it had lots of pluses. So I posted my dilemma on Facebook, and this question was posed to me to help me make the decision. What would I feel like if someone else bought the van first? And that pretty much made the decision for me. I couldn't let it go to someone else. It was too perfect. It might have been smaller than what I wanted, but it had so much going for it, and I really liked it. I could really see myself in it. So I decided to buy it, and I gave them a call, and I made a deposit, and I made the commitment. And I had to wait another week to pick it up because it was unregistered and needed to go through all the things that our laws make us do first, like get it checked over by Vic Roads and roadworthy certificate and so on. And the other plus about buying from a mechanic is that he did all of that for me. So I didn't have to worry about going through all the drama of purchasing it and taking it elsewhere to get the roadworthy and then going to Vic Roads and getting it tested and all that kind of stuff. That would have taken hours and mechanical know-how to do and money. And it really saved me a lot. It took, that was another plus basically by going with them, is that I didn't have to do all of that crap. And if they had said, okay, this is wrong, if you've gone through all the things that you've gone through and then you go to Vic Roads and they say, no, we're not accepting this because of this, then I might not have had the money to be able to actually get it registered, and it would have put me behind even more. So all in all, the process of buying the van went very, very smoothly. The people I bought it from were fantastic and lovely, and they even purchased and set up an inverter for me. They bought me a water tank thing, a sink tap, a gas stove and cans, although I'm not keeping any of the things that they bought for me. They put in some other touches that they thought that I might need, such as the sideboard to the van to hold more storage and a little table to hold up the stove. And they called me to make sure that I was happy with the purchase and to let me know they were available for any questions. So they were just really nice, and it was a really good experience.